guys, it's Pascal with French Wine Explorers, and we help wine lovers become connoisseurs. Comment below if you have any questions that I can help you with. I'll be happy to do so. What I thought we would do today is go over one of my favorite things to talk about, which is champagne. In fact, I had a really rough week. I just finished another Facebook Live, so I'm on my second glass of bubbly. And you know, sometimes you just need to start a little bit earlier than planned. So I'm starting with this beautiful Grand Cru, and it is a Blanc de Blanc, which is 100% Chardonnay. And bonjour Nicole, thank you. If you take our class, you'll know what this all means. Blanc de Blanc, Grand Cru, grower producer. It's good. It's $57, so it was not going to break the bank. I figured I'd give it a try. I serve it with chips, and anybody who takes the course knows why. Did you notice that I am not in a champagne glass? Santé. I am in a white wine glass, and so if you take our course, you'll know why. But I thought we'd go over some frequently asked questions. But before I did that, I wanted to tell you my story about when Pierre and I got married. When we got married, Pierre's grandfather, who's French, owned a restaurant for many, many years. He was retired. He offered us 75 bottles of grower-producer champagne. We were only 75 people at the dinner. So I thought to myself, wow, this guy must really love champagne. So that's where my love of champagne started. And it was a grower-producer champagne, a very small grower-producer, one I had never heard of. And I thought to myself, wow, they don't have this in the United States. Why is that? So as I moved on with the business, I realized that a lot of grower-producer champagne, those are the ones that are beyond the big labels, they actually don't even export to the United States. So that's my story about French champagne, how I got started to loving French champagne. It was all about those 75 bottles that my grandfather offered to us. Bonjour Jane from Toulouse. So I thought we could do best strategies to better enjoy champagne. All right, so let's dive in. First question that I get a lot is, can I keep the champagne in the refrigerator? And the answer is you can, but not for more than a week. What happens is if you keep it in your regular fridge, there are a couple of factors working against you. First of all, there's light when you keep opening and closing the door. Second of all, there's humidity. Fridges are known for being very humid, and that can affect your cork. I remember I had a Ruinart beautiful bottle of champagne. This was before we got our wine cellar fridge, and I am hoping to offer it to my son for his 16th birthday, because I bought it for him for his 16th birthday, and when we popped it open, the cork had shriveled up, probably because it was kept in the fridge too long. So that's why you don't want to keep it in the fridge for more than 1 week. The last thing is vibration. So the problem with vibration is if you keep your champagne bottle, or really any wine, in the regular fridge for too long, the vibration of the system will affect the, because it's constantly shaking it, will affect it. So then what do we do? How do we keep it? You want to keep it somewhere that is cool, that is dark, and that is not affected by temperature swings. And what I used to do before I was able to have a wine fridge is I would put it in a shoebox in a closet that I never really opened. And that really worked well. So if you don't have a wine cellar, and you don't have a wine fridge, and you don't have a wine basement, which is how I started, then think about putting it in a cool position in a closet. And remember also, don't store your champagne up like this, because the cork should be in contact with moisture at all times. So keep that in the back of your mind. So lay the champagne bottle down in a shoebox if you have it. If you don't, just lay the champagne bottle down, and that's going to help you. All right. Next question, can I serve champagne with dinner? I get this all the time. Absolutely. There is no reason why we can't have champagne all the time, including with dinner. So how do you pair a champagne for dinner? I'll give you the basics. You want to have a champagne that matches what you're serving. So if you're serving a meat, you're going to have a champagne that matches that serving. So you want something a little bit heavier with maybe some Pinot Noir or Pinot Meunier. If you have a light dish, like a fish, then you can have a champagne that's a little bit lighter. And if you want to know more about it, you really should take our class or go on one of our tours, because we go over the influence of sugar, the types of grapes that are used in champagne, and how to pair those for an aperitif, for a main course, and for a dessert. So just keep in mind the type of grape that's used should pair well with whatever you're serving. So for an appetizer, it may be one type of grape. For a main course, it may be another type of grape for champagne, and for dessert, it definitely will be a different type of champagne. Any questions? Pop them below. I see you, Jane and Nicole. I see you. My last question is, how long can I keep a bottle of champagne open? I laughed at this one because that's never been a problem for me. But for example, I opened this one. We talked about this one already, the Grand Cru. And we may or may not finish it, but I have one of those special corks for champagne, so I'll pop it in the fridge. I'll keep it maybe a day or two. Past that, it's not going to be any good. And I would recommend the same. A day or two, some say up to 3 to 5 days. I just don't know why you would have a reason to keep champagne in a fridge for more than a couple of days. So no more than a day or two, and then, finish consuming it. It will have a different profile for sure. It will definitely taste different than when you first open it. Like when I first opened this champagne as a Blanc de Blanc Grand Cru, I was really expecting more brioche notes, and I didn't get any brioche notes at all, and now they're coming out. So what's fun about champagne, if you have it for the entire meal, is it will progress as you progress with the food. And it's very interesting to see how it goes. Now this I'm having on its own, so it's quite pure, and I can really taste the different notes. So that is something that's really fun about champagne, is you can kind of see the progression as it gets to a different temperature, as it's exposed to air, and things like that. So with that being said, if you wouldn't mind, please put a couple of questions in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them next week. One of the questions that I had from Dawn, who's a doll, and I thought I would answer, she asked me if I use a travel carry-on for a 2-week trip. And my response was, absolutely. I use a carry-on for 1 week or 1 month, and everything in between. And there are strategies and work uniforms that you can use to do this, but it's been a life saver and a game changer. And the reason I did it is when I was 18, my parents gifted me Gucci luggage, and as beautiful as it was, it got delayed when I moved from the United States to France. And I didn't have it for about 2 weeks. And I thought to myself, this is insane. That luggage is so pricey. And hold on, let me look at these comments here. Oh, great. And maybe I won't never get it back. So from that moment on, I was 18. From that moment on, I decided no more carry-on luggage. Hi, Fred. So the question is, do you travel with a carry-on for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month? Yes, I do. I only use carry-on luggage. And there are strategies that you can use to do that. If you go on our YouTube channel, we have an entire video dedicated on how to travel with just a carry-on. And nowadays, with travel being a little bit more complicated than it used to be, that is definitely something that you should look into. It is a game changer, especially if you have to connect flights. And I would really encourage you to try and figure out ways to travel with just a carry-on. Less is more, quality over quantity. And that's it. So I bid you farewell. Have a great weekend, and cheers. I'll talk to you next week. Next Friday, we'll be back on. So don't forget to tune in. Santé!